How do those people on Instagram make their latte art look so damn good? Well, here's the secret. They are doing stuff before they even start pouring that sets them up for success, and when they are pouring, they're doing stuff that you wouldn't even think to notice. So let me show you what 10 of these things are, and I promise you'll improve your latte art almost instantly. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you'll see a barista shift their milk into another jug before pouring, and maybe you'll even see them tip a tiny bit out before they start their pour? These are important. The first thing is called splitting the milk, and it homogenizes the milk foam. So even if your milk steaming isn't perfect, it will help you to recover from that. And if your milk steaming is great, it will help to improve the consistency. When you're splitting your milk, if you just dump it into the other jug, you won't get that nice microfoam anymore because you'll break up the bubbles too much. So I recommend you angle your second jug and pour it into the side of the inside wall like this. If you pulled in some big bubbles, just split the milk from a higher height, up to maybe 10 centimeters or so at the most, which will split apart the bigger bubbles more easily. So what about pouring a bit out into another jug before pouring into the cup? Well, if your jug has too much milk in it, the milk will pour out too fast and it'll fill your cup too quickly, which won't have the right amount of foam to create the designs that you want. Pouring a little bit out so you just have a few milliliters more than you need for the cup size will help you pour much better latte art, as you'll be more in control and the foam will be the right level, especially towards the end. This is especially true for advanced free pour designs like the Pegasus I'm still working on, which if you have too much milk, it won't be thick enough at the end to get the head right. And don't worry, I will definitely do a tutorial video about it as soon as I can get it perfectly 3 times in a row, so subscribe to see that when I'm ready to share it. Now for steaming. Even when a pro latte artists share their steaming techniques in videos, you might not know what they're actually doing differently. So first, don't start steaming and then hunt around for the middle point. This movement is going to make it really hard to get a roll going, which is the most important part. Find your Goldilocks zone and then just go there every time and stay there. I'm not going to go on about it because there are already a lot of videos, not only on my channel but on other channels, about how to steam properly, but the easiest method that works for most machines is to put your wand into the spout, point the tip towards the middle, and then angle 10 degrees left or right. For commercial machines and ones with 4-hole steam tips, you can either put the steam wand straight down in the middle or into the side of the jug, which can be especially helpful if you have very powerful steam. Now, something they definitely don't tell you is that if you want your designs to look better and last longer, don't heat up the milk too much. In competitions where temperature isn't measured, many baristas just incorporate the milk and then stop. Cooler milk may not be servable in a cafe setting, but if you're pouring just for the latte art, cooler milk is slightly better and won't bubble up and turn blobby as fast. Next, you probably don't have the same machine as a lot of people in these fancy Instagram videos, who may be baristas using their cafe machines that cost upwards of 10 or even 20 grand. Different machines have different steaming capabilities, and if yours isn't strong enough to get a good roll, you won't be able to get your milk just right for these kinds of lines. And if you're using a single boiler machine and your espresso has been sitting waiting for the machine to heat up and then steam milk for latte art, your crema might have cooled down a little bit, forming a bit of a crust on top. So make sure to give it a good swirl before you start. Another thing is to always choose the right milk. 3.5 to 4% fat seem to be the best from my experience, and skimmed milk is rubbish, just don't use it. And in the UK, the ones I've found to be the best are the gold top Jersey cow's milk and filtered milk like Cravendale. And a little trick if you want to use skimmed milk is to pour just a little drop of whole milk in there. It'll give it enough fat so that you can steam it properly. And something else you might not see is people weighing the milk. I know this sounds a little bit obsessive, but it can be a big differentiator, especially for advanced free pours, because guessing is going to get you small differences. For example, in my 350ml not neutral cup that I probably use for most of my advanced pours, I go with 230 mils of milk to pour a Pegasus. Next, if you're using light roasts like I enjoy more, don't expect to have killer contrast in your pours. The canvas just won't take in the milk the same way, so for pouring really killer latte art, I always use a low altitude medium or darker roast coffee. The reason I say low altitude is because even if you roast a medium or dark roast Ethiopian coffee from a high altitude, it still doesn't get as nice of a crema because of the density of the beans. It's really those low altitude beans like a Brazilian or something that will give you the richest canvas in my experience. And it's a good thing because Brazil is the biggest coffee producer in the world and is often one of the cheapest. And if you're finding that you don't have a very thick crema on top, or your crema is too thick and kind of forms a crust, it might be because your coffee should be somewhere between 8 and 20 days off the roast. This is the ideal time to have the right amount of CO2 still stuck in the bean to give you a nice thick crema. A subtle thing that you may not have noticed is that if your pores tend to bunch up a bit too much and you don't have that clear separation between lines like those Instagram barista kings and queens have, it might be one of these two things. One is that you're probably not pushing your layers into the cup enough. This made a huge difference to my latte art when I realized it. If you just pour and let the milk come out of the jug, even if you're very close to the canvas, you'll still have this kind of effect where the milk will just look a little bit fat and not sharp. So when you start your design, dolphin dive that first layer out a little bit and then pour while moving forwards and upwards. That will shove the first heart into the bottom of the cup and create some separation, and then when you push into that layer, you'll start to see it wrap around. And if you're still seeing hearts like this, especially at the end of your pour, you might not even notice that what you're doing is pouring slightly to one side. It's really easy to do. I was doing it a lot and I only realized when my friend Barista Benji, shout out to him, showed me in a video while he was training me for the caffeine latte art competition. And no, I didn't make a video about it because I got knocked out in the first round and it was really embarrassing. That was the worst tulip I've ever poured in my life. Just too awful. Anyway, if you do all of those things, your latte art will get better. Links to any gear I currently use in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, you wonderfully overcaffeinated people, and I'll see you on the next one.